It was supposed to be one night. Just crash on the couch, wake up, and bounce. That's what I kept telling myself as I threw my backpack over my shoulder and followed my friend Eric into his house that Friday evening. We'd pulled an all-nighter working on a group project, me, him, and a few others, at his place, and when the night wrapped up around 1:30 a.m., the trains had basically stopped running. "Just stay over," Eric said, like it was the most casual thing in the world. "You've stayed before," and I had. Once, months ago. Nothing weird. Just a night on the living room couch while he and his dad were asleep. Easy. This time, though, something felt off. Not bad, just different. When we walked in, the house was quiet except for the sound of late-night news on low volume from the other room. Eric's dad, Mr. Hale, was in his usual spot on the couch wearing gray sweats and a black t-shirt, sipping what I assumed was whiskey from a lowball glass. His glasses were perched on the edge of his nose, and he didn't look up until Eric spoke. "Dad, this is my friend Liam. He's crashing here tonight." The train stopped. Mr. Hale glanced at me. And I mean, really looked. His gaze felt longer than necessary, slower, more focused. Then he nodded. "Liam," he said, deep voice, controlled. "You're welcome anytime." I smiled awkwardly. "Thanks, sir. Appreciate it." Eric disappeared upstairs to shower, leaving me alone in the living room with his dad. I dropped my bag beside the couch and awkwardly pulled out my phone, pretending I had something urgent to check. While Mr. Hale turned the volume down on the TV. "You in school too?" he asked after a minute. "Yeah, same as Eric. Computer science." He nodded. "Smart." There was a beat of silence, then he asked, "You got someone?" I looked up. "What?" He gestured lazily with his glass. "A partner. Someone waiting for you tonight." It was phrased weirdly. I hesitated. No." He nodded again, like that was an answer to something bigger than I realized. "I see." The air felt thick, but not exactly uncomfortable, just tense in a way I couldn't define. Eric came back downstairs eventually, still damp from his shower, hair sticking up. "You good to crash in the guest room? Couch is full of laundry." I nodded. "Yeah, that's fine." The guest room was down the hall. I'd never used it before, but it was nicer than I expected. Clean sheets, big bed, quiet. I tossed my bag on the floor, pulled off my jeans, and climbed in with just a t-shirt and boxers. For a while, I just laid there, scrolling through my phone, the faint sounds of the TV still bleeding in from the other side of the house. Eventually, I fell asleep. At least, I thought I did. Sometime in the middle of the night, I stirred. I wasn't sure what woke me. Maybe the creak of a floorboard, maybe just the shift of the house. But then I realized I wasn't alone in the room. I heard the door click softly shut, then footsteps. Barefoot, slow. My eyes adjusted to the low light coming from the hallway, just enough to see the outline of a tall figure standing near the foot of the bed. "Mr. Hale?" I asked, voice hoarse with sleep. He didn't answer right away, just stood there, watching. Finally, he said, "Didn't mean to wake you." I sat up slightly, my body tense. "Is everything okay?" He took a slow step forward. "I couldn't sleep. Thought I heard something. Wanted to make sure you were comfortable." I nodded cautiously. "Yeah, I'm good, thanks." But he didn't leave. Instead, he walked closer to the bed, just a few feet away now. "You're not like Eric's other friends," he said softly. "You're quiet. You listen. Polite." I didn't know what to say to that. I just sat there, heartbeat rising. He looked at me for a long moment. "You don't have to be nervous." "I'm not," I lied. He gave the faintest smile. "Sure." And then, without another word, he reached over and gently touched my shoulder. Not roughly, not inappropriately, just a hand. A firm, warm, steady hand. But it lingered. Too long. I couldn't move. I didn't know if I wanted to. I should have said something. That's what I kept thinking, even as his hand rested there, light but undeniably deliberate, on my shoulder. I should have cleared my throat, laughed it off, asked if he needed water, anything. But instead, I just sat there, frozen. Not out of fear, not exactly, just trying to understand what the hell was happening. "You're tense," Mr. Hale said, voice low, almost a whisper. "You all right?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Just tired." His thumb rubbed gently over the curve of my shoulder, and I realized how close he was now. Closer than anyone's dad should be at 2 a.m. in a guest room with a college kid who wasn't even wearing pants. I shifted slightly, the sheets rustling beneath me. "Eric," I started, my voice tight. "Is dead asleep upstairs," he cut in. "Trust me, kid could sleep through an earthquake." He wasn't wrong. Eric once slept through a fire alarm in our dorm during freshman year. Still, something about how Mr. Hale said it made the hairs on my neck stand up. Then he added, "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." But he still hadn't moved his hand. "I'm not," I said, too quickly and too quietly. He looked at me for a beat, like he was trying to read past my words. His eyes weren't leering or aggressive. If anything, he looked calm, composed, like he knew exactly what he was doing, and nothing could surprise him. "I don't usually do this," he said. I swallowed. "Do what?" "This," he murmured, stepping back slightly, finally lifting his hand. He gestured around the room, vaguely. "Midnight chats with half-naked college boys." There was a pause. His tone had changed, less serious now, almost teasing. "I'm not half-naked," I muttered, suddenly feeling the need to pull the blanket higher. Could have fooled me. He said it with a smirk, and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to laugh or be offended. But part of me, some twisted part, was flattered. "Look," he said after a second, running a hand through his hair, "I don't want to make this weird. You're Eric's friend. You're a guest. If I crossed a line, just say so." His sudden shift to being apologetic, respectful even, threw me off. I was braced for him to double down. Instead, he seemed conflicted. I shook my head. "It's not that. It's just unexpected." He nodded, almost to himself. "Yeah, I get that." And then he did something I really didn't expect. He turned to leave. "I'll let you sleep," he said, reaching for the door. "Wait," I said before I could stop myself. He turned. I didn't know why I said it. Maybe I wanted clarity. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I didn't want him to leave. The room suddenly felt colder when he took that step toward the hallway. He looked at me like he was waiting for a reason to stay. But I didn't know how to give him one. "You've got a lot on your mind," he said gently. "I get it." Then, just before he stepped out, he said, "Door's open, if you can't sleep." And with that, he was gone. I lay back down, staring at the ceiling, heart hammering in my chest. I didn't sleep. Not for hours. Not because I was afraid. Because I was thinking about the way his hand felt on my shoulder. Because I wasn't sure what I wanted more, clarity, or for him to come back. I didn't go to the door. Not that night. I wanted to. I can admit that now. I stared at it for at least 20 minutes, like something was pulling me toward the hallway, daring me to peek around the corner and see if he was still awake. But I didn't move. Eventually, sometime past 4 a.m., I drifted into a light, twitchy kind of sleep. The kind where your brain won't shut up and every sound jerks you awake. When I finally sat up for good, the sun was already high in the sky. I checked my phone. 10:42 a.m. Eric was still asleep upstairs. Typical. I shuffled out of the guest room, trying not to look like a complete wreck. The house was quiet, except for the faint clinking of dishes coming from the kitchen. I rounded the corner and there he was, Mr. Hale, shirtless in gray joggers, making coffee like nothing had happened. "Morning," he said without looking up. "Morning," I replied, my voice scratchy. He poured an extra mug and slid it across the counter without asking. Rough night? You have no idea. Yeah, I said instead. Didn't sleep great. He nodded like he expected that answer. There was a pause while we both sipped our coffee. I kept my eyes on the window, watching birds hop around the backyard like they had the luxury of not overthinking anything. Then he said, I want to apologize. Again. For last night. You don't have to, I said quickly. No, I do, he replied, finally meeting my eyes. Because you're not just some guy. You're my son's friend. That matters. The way he said it wasn't cold. It wasn't some awkward morning after backpedal. He said it like it was a line he'd drawn for himself, but one he wasn't sure he could stick to. I nodded. I get it. He took a sip, leaned against the counter, and looked at me with a different kind of intensity. Less calculated. More curious. You didn't seem freaked out, he said quietly. I wasn't. Another beat passed. So why didn't you come find me? I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was embarrassing. Because I'd never had a man look at me the way he had. Because I'd never been in a position where I wanted someone I wasn't supposed to want. I didn't know what it meant, I finally said. He gave a small laugh. Yeah. Welcome to my world. That line stuck with me. He turned to grab a protein bar from the pantry. The casual way his back muscles moved under his skin shouldn't have been something I noticed. But I did. I figured I made you uncomfortable, he added, peeling the wrapper slowly. You didn't, he raised an eyebrow. Then why'd you stop me? I didn't, I said without thinking. We both froze for a second. That moment. Right there. That was the shift. He walked back over to the counter, set his coffee down, and looked me square in the face. So if I sat down right now, we're just talking, right? My pulse kicked up. Yeah, I said. We're just talking. He pulled out the stool next to me and sat, legs spread, elbows on his knees. Close enough that I could smell the soap on his skin. Close enough that every nerve in my body lit up. Tell me something, he said, voice low. You ever done anything with a guy before? I stared at my coffee. Not really, he tilted his head. Not really? I shrugged, thought about it. Nothing happened. He leaned in just a little. That's why you didn't stop me. I looked up, finally meeting his eyes. No, I said. That's not why. I didn't stop you, because I didn't want you to stop. His expression didn't change, but the air between us did. Thick, charged, silent. And then, like he was testing a wire for current, he reached out again, his hand brushing lightly over my forearm. Slower this time. No excuses. No alcohol. No middle-of-the-night ambiguity. This was deliberate. And I didn't pull away. He didn't go further. Not right away. His fingers just rested on my forearm, light and careful, like he was giving me a choice. Like he wanted to know if I'd flinch, pull back, say something. I didn't. We sat like that, silent, tension humming beneath our skin, for what felt like a full minute. The TV in the other room murmured something about traffic. A bird hit the window screen. Somewhere upstairs, Eric was probably still dead asleep, headphones on, unaware that his dad had his hand on my arm, and I wasn't moving away. You're not a kid, Mr. Hale said finally, voice low. No, I said quietly. I'm not. His thumb brushed over my skin, like he was memorizing it. His hand was warm, steady. I felt the heat crawl up my neck, the kind of slow flush that makes your heartbeat loud in your ears. Say the word, he murmured, and I'll step back. I looked at him, really looked. His jaw was tense, like he was holding himself still on purpose. His eyes weren't cold or manipulative or even overly confident. He looked like someone who hadn't let himself want something in a long time and was suddenly realizing it might be possible. You don't have to, I whispered. He didn't move. I mean it, I added. If you're second guessing. I'm not, he cut in. I'm just trying to be careful. There was something about the way he said that. Not hesitant, just grounded, like he'd already had the internal argument with himself and landed here, next to me, with his hand still on my arm and the silence between us thick enough to taste. He let go slowly, like he didn't want the moment to break all at once. Then he stood and stepped back, grabbing both of our mugs and setting them in the sink. "You staying for lunch?" he asked, just like that. Like we hadn't just had the most intense non-conversation of my life. I blinked. I guess so, if that's okay." He nodded. "You eat eggs?" "Yeah, good," he said, pulling a carton from the fridge. "I make a mean omelet." I stood there watching him for a second, unsure if we were pretending nothing happened, or if this was just how he handled it. He didn't look flustered. He didn't look guilty. He looked like a man who had done something intentional and was now letting me decide what came next. "Cool if I grab my charger from the guest room?" I asked. He nodded without turning. "Go ahead." I walked slowly down the hall, half expecting him to say something else. He didn't. Back in the guest room, I picked up my charger, but I didn't plug it in. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall, because my head was spinning. What had just happened wasn't a mistake. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't sleepwalking. He'd made a move. And now the ball was in my court. I didn't go back to the kitchen right away. I sat on the edge of the bed, charger in hand, wondering if I was imagining how thick the tension had been, how careful his touch was, how deliberate his words were. But the longer I sat there, the more I realized something that made my stomach twist in a way I didn't fully hate. I wanted more. I didn't plan that. I didn't walk into Eric's house looking for a moment with his dad. I didn't expect anything beyond some awkward couch sleep and a cold shower in the morning. But here I was, staring at the floor of a guest room, pulse quickening just thinking about how Mr. Hale looked at me. I eventually made my way back out. He was finishing the omelets, back turned, humming something low under his breath. There was something strangely domestic about it, like I'd walked into a Saturday morning with someone I actually lived with. He looked over when I entered. "Hungry?" I nodded. "Starving." He slid a plate in front of me. "You look better," he said casually. "Better?" "Less like you saw a ghost," he said, smirking. "Sleep helped?" I sat down and forked into the eggs. "Yeah, that. And the conversation." He didn't sit right away. Just stood across from me, leaning on the counter, watching me eat like he was still working out what to do with me. Then he said, "You seem like a thinker." I looked up. "Is that a bad thing?" "No," he said. "Just dangerous. Guys like you think yourself out of what you want." That shut me up. He finally took a seat across from me, coffee back in hand. "I'm not gonna push," he added, "and I'm not playing some midlife crisis game either. This isn't about needing attention." He paused. "I just think you felt it too." I swallowed. The eggs tasted like nothing. My mouth had gone dry. "I did," I said. He nodded once, like he appreciated the honesty. Then he leaned in a little. "So just tell me if I'm reading this wrong." I didn't answer right away. I couldn't. My fingers were tight around my fork, but my mind was racing. Not with panic, not even with guilt. Just this overwhelming realization that I was standing on the edge of something I hadn't even considered before yesterday, and all I had to do was step forward. "You're not," I said, finally, my voice barely above a whisper. That changed the air between us. He sat back, exhaled through his nose, and ran a hand through his hair. It was subtle, but the tension in his shoulders eased. "Okay," he said simply. We didn't speak for a minute, just sat in the kitchen, eating like we hadn't just crossed a line with no clear path back. Then he said, "Eric's heading out around 1. He's got plans." I looked at him, raising an eyebrow. "And you're telling me that because," he said, "if you decide to stay a little longer." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I didn't answer him right away. I kept eating like it was just a normal breakfast, even though my brain was spinning like crazy. Because that invitation, soft as it was, vague as it tried to be, wasn't about lunch. It wasn't about hanging out. It was about him and me and the door that had cracked open the night before, and whether I was going to step through it. Eric came downstairs about 20 minutes later, yawning and scratching at his head like he didn't even know the sun was up. "Yo," he mumbled, grabbing a banana. "You still here?" I nodded, trying to sound normal. "Yeah, your dad made breakfast." He looked over at Mr. Hale. "You never make me eggs." Mr. Hale just smirked. "You never ask." Eric plopped on the couch and turned on the TV. "I'm heading out soon, by the way. Gotta help Jessie with her apartment move." Jessie, his maybe girlfriend. Maybe not, I didn't care. All I heard was he's leaving soon. I locked eyes with Mr. Hale for the briefest second. No smile. Just quiet acknowledgement. After Eric left, after the sound of the front door clicked shut and we watched from the kitchen window as his car pulled out of the driveway, Mr. Hale turned to me. "You're still here," he said. It wasn't a question. "I am." He leaned on the counter, arms crossed, voice calm. "You staying for a reason?" I set my empty plate in the sink and turned to face him. "I think you know the answer to that." He studied me for a beat. Then he walked past me, motioning toward the hallway. "Come on," he said. I followed. Not to the kitchen, not to the guest room, to his bedroom. He pushed the door open and stepped inside like it was nothing, like this wasn't a huge deal, like I wasn't standing on the precipice of something I'd never even let myself fantasize about. I paused in the doorway. "You okay?" he asked, voice lower now. "Yeah," I said, swallowing. "Just thinking." He stepped back toward me, slower now, like he didn't want to spook me. "You don't have to do anything," he said. "You can just sit, we can talk, or not talk." I believed him. That was the weird part. This didn't feel like a trap. It didn't feel like some secret seduction or twisted game. It felt real, intentional, careful. I stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind me, and the room went quiet. He didn't touch me, not right away. He sat on the edge of the bed and looked up at me, waiting. No pressure, just space. Permission. So I walked over and sat beside him. We didn't speak, not for a minute. Then he said, "You don't owe me anything." "I know, I just like being around you." I looked at him then, really looked. "Me too." The silence returned. Not awkward, just heavy. And then, slowly, like he wanted to give me every second to change my mind, he reached up and touched my jaw. Gentle, careful, like he didn't want to break something. His thumb brushed the corner of my mouth, and this time, I didn't freeze. There's a moment when something crosses the line, from hypothetical to real. And once it does, you can't go back. Not mentally, not emotionally, not even if you wanted to. This was that moment. His thumb at the corner of my mouth, my breath shallow, our knees touching just enough for me to feel the heat of his skin through his joggers. He didn't move fast. There was no rush, no impatience. He just looked at me like he was making sure I was still there. Still okay with this. I leaned forward slightly. That's all it took. The smallest shift, and suddenly we were in it. His lips brushed mine first. Tentative, warm, testing. Not aggressive, not controlling, just asking, silently, if this was really what I wanted. I answered him without speaking. My hand found the side of his neck, pulling him just a little closer. The second kiss wasn't soft. It was hungry. His fingers dug lightly into my waist, grounding me there, and mine curled into the front of his shirt, knuckles brushing against the slow, steady rhythm of his chest. The room was quiet, except for our breathing, and the creak of the bed frame beneath us as we shifted, gravity pulling us in tighter. I didn't think. I didn't weigh pros and cons. I didn't wonder what Eric would say, or what this meant, or whether it would screw things up forever. In that moment, it didn't matter. He kissed like a man who didn't usually get to be soft, like someone who carried control like a second skin and didn't get to take it off very often. Every movement was precise, restrained, but I could feel the tension under it, like he was fighting not to devour me whole. I didn't want him to fight it. He pulled back slowly, eyes meeting mine. His voice was low, ragged. "Still okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, you?" He gave the smallest smile. "Better than okay." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. And then he kissed me again, deeper this time, his hand sliding up the back of my neck into my hair. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Minutes, maybe more. It felt suspended, like time didn't apply in that room. Just the two of us, the weight of the moment, the sudden intimacy that felt both impossible and overdue. Eventually, he pulled away, resting his forehead against mine. "I didn't imagine this, right?" I asked quietly. "No," he said, voice rough but certain. "You didn't." We sat there, forehead to forehead, our breathing starting to slow, the weight of what just happened beginning to settle. And for once, I didn't feel confused. I just felt seen, wanted. Eventually, reality comes knocking. After the heat, the hush, the closeness, the world starts to trickle back in. The sun shifts in the sky. A car door slams in the distance. Somewhere in the house, the AC kicks on. And suddenly you remember where you are. Whose house you're in. Whose father just kissed you. Mr. Hale pulled back slowly, brushing a thumb over my cheek in one last, quiet gesture before standing up. His posture shifted, just slightly, something guarded slipping back into place. Not regret, exactly. Just caution. "You should head back before Eric comes home," he said. It wasn't cold, just real. I nodded, my heart sinking a little. Right. He grabbed a shirt off the back of a chair, pulled it on over his head without looking at me. I watched the way his shoulders moved, the way his jaw clenched, like he was already playing through the consequences in his mind. I stood too, suddenly unsure what to do with my hands, or my face, or my entire body. Is this gonna be a thing now?" I asked, before I could stop myself. He looked at me, really looked, and there was something soft in his eyes again, something familiar now. "I don't know," he admitted. "I haven't thought that far ahead." I nodded, trying not to let the answer sting. "But I don't regret it," he added. "I won't pretend it didn't happen." That mattered more than I expected. I grabbed my bag from the guest room, tucked my charger away, and walked to the front door. He followed me but didn't say anything until I was halfway out. "Liam," I turned, "text me when you get home." It was such a simple thing, but the way he said it, low, direct, not like a dad, but like a man who had let someone in, made something tighten in my chest. "I will!" The door closed behind me. The sunlight felt too bright, the air weirdly crisp. I walked to the train station like I wasn't carrying a secret that could burn everything down. I didn't text anyone, I didn't call. I just sat on the platform and replayed everything. The look in his eyes, the first kiss, the way he said my name, the way I didn't want to leave. Back home, I didn't hear from him for a while. A day, then 2, then 3. I tried to play it cool, tried not to reread our last texts, tried not to hope. Then, on the 4th night, my phone lit up. "Dinner this weekend?" Something casual. Just us. Just us. I stared at the screen for a long time. And then I typed, "Yeah, I'd like that." Because even if I didn't know where this was going, I knew where it started. Right there, in the guest room of my friend's house, with a man I shouldn't have wanted, and who maybe shouldn't have wanted me, but did.